We're live now. So, hi, welcome Trinidad and Tobago to another episode of Tuesday Talks with the Movement for Social Justice. I am Faviola, your host, and we have tonight Shiraz Khan, an executive member of the Trinidad and Tobago Farmers Association. Welcome, Shiraz.
Farmers Union. Yeah,
Farmers
Farmers
Unions,
Union.
apologies, Farmers
Thank you
Union.
for having me. Good evening, Fabiola, and thanks for having me and your viewers and your listeners. Um, uh, Pleasant evening to you all.
Okay. So a few months ago, wasn't that long ago, we had you on with us after the budget debate to talk about
Yeah,
the impact on farming, the whole agricultural sector, and food prices. And
yeah.
here we are now in 2022, and NFM has announced rising prices, KISS has announced rising prices. So MSJ has launched its Boycott KISS campaign. So what has anything changed from the farmer's perspective?
Again, a lot has changed.
Okay.
Because what happened is that the continued increase of feed prices, because we were faced with in the beginning of the year, NFM raised prices on feed, on middling, and thereby they continue to increase the price of feed. And if you remember in the last interview, I said that we continue to face, will face this problem and continue to face it, not because of the pandemic and global warming, but because if you as a large country and you have grains to feed yourself, you're not gonna old time saying you're not gonna cut your nose to spoil your face. So people will
Right.
continue to hold their products for themselves, and if they do have to sell extras or over surplus, they will look to get the best price for it. And we are faced with the dilemma, a small country, and we would
Mm-hmm.
not be in that negotiating room because China is buying up all the grains from even from the US. They're buying grains out of the US, and that created a shortage of grains on the market.
Okay.
But the additional things about in terms of the grains increase, price of grain increase. You saw
Mm-hmm.
that chicken prices going up the next week, right? Chicken prices
Okay.
going up. And also Nestle is also raising the price of their products, right? Now, what I want to share with you all is that in 2007, Comrade Abdullah will remember this so well. We had a campaign against KISS and other companies for the rising food prices that lead to, because of our activism and our campaign about rising food prices, led to a consultation in 2007 in August, finding the solution by Patrick Manning. And
Okay.
at that the at that time was Fighton and the president was David Abdullah and I was an executive member. We fought very hard to have a prices commission, and it was installed. A prices commission was installed in 2007, and lo
Mm-hmm.
and behold, in 2010, the People's Partnership did have one, but they didn't give it the resources and they didn't give it the necessary tools to achieve the success of the prices commission. And then in 2015, the PNM never put somebody in place or never set up that commission to look at the rising food prices. So hence the reason why we have now is a free for all. People will just feel free to raise their prices at any whims and fancy and any percentage that they want. But what
Mm-hmm.
we need to do is to have, just like how the regulated industries is that have something to deal with the prices, but then again, the people who are raising the prices are basically financiers of the political parties, and they don't want to interfere with them. You know,
Right.
they fall in the bracket of the one percenters, right? So we're in a dilemma as ordinary people where they continue to raise their commodities, and we have no other choice but to say, all right, we have to get it. What do we do? But then you have some people who can access those commodities regardless of what price they go at. But they have the
Right.
majority of people who cannot get that, right?
Exactly.
So what happened is that, and we are all to be blamed for that because we have lost our local taste for local foods. we have lost our ability because I've been farming for a number of years, and you know, WT, you would remember, since 2012, I'm 2014, all through the years, I'm calling for community farms to get involved with farmers and community. And I think that is the way where we have to go now for us ordinary people or small people to have something to go by, right? We need to have those small bakeries. We need to start supporting them. Those because what we do when we support those big franchise, actually we are having one leg up to be massacre, right? That is what it is, and we need to
So can I
understand
ask you
our
something?
role. Yeah.
So
Sure.
a community farm, what would that look like in terms of if I wanted to start one or if I wanted to talk to people, what challenges might we have? Who do we have to talk to? If you could tell the audience a
Well,
little bit more.
it's not challenge. It has to be a mutual understanding between community, and I think the MSJ is one of the fitting people because we understand communities, we understand our people, we are the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is to get people, leaders in the community, talking to the farmers, right?
Yeah.
Bringing them together, identify one or two areas where we bring our produce, right? We then work with the farmer and the people who are knowledgeable and educated about certain things, about safe chemicals and so on, because not always the farmer is the one who know about the chemicals. Then we tell the people, well, look, we want to get bygone tomatoes, bhaji, cassava, sweet potato. All right. Well, one farmer cannot produce all of that. So we have different farmers. So we say that, okay, not everybody in this community going to produce cassava. So we structure the whole thing that everybody will bring a different commodity to the market, thereby giving growth to new people who want to do farming, who is unemployed. So even if it's though that the person don't have much land to grow something by, at least this guy with somebody managing and monitoring the whole system, that okay, even though this guy live on one lot of land and could plant 2,000 head of lettuce, okay, so what you will do, you will supply your lettuce on the second Saturday of the month, right? And you have other people doing it in small amounts that you know that they could satisfy that market. Okay, take for instance tomato. You're not going to have everybody going to rush to plant tomato because tomato, well, you know, it's normally a high price product.
Yeah.
Right? It's beyond $5 a pound most times. So you don't want everybody. So you need to work with the farmers and have a scheduling of what to grow so that when they come to the market, it have a variety of goods that is available to the community.
Okay.
But the community must be able to understand that, hey, not because you want something cheaper, that you're going to now we work out a cost of production and say, look, this is being fair. But the farmer cannot cost a farmer $5 to produce a pound of tomato and sell it for $5. It's got to be a little something more that he could continue living by. So it is a win-win for all.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I am almost certain because I see it work in a number, even Cuba, right? Even Cuba.
Okay.
So when I talk to some of the people, we visit farms and this and it is a scheduling of producing food to go into the grid of satisfying the requirements of the citizen. And Canada has it. Canada has a farmers market on a Thursday. They block off a whole street, and I brought that idea into Trinidad in the late 90s, and it gives growth now to farmers market because they were blocking off a street in Toronto, a whole street, even in the winter time, very cold time, and people would have come, a farmer would have come with a panel van and have his goods in there, and not 20 different commodity, you know, one or two commodity, right? So it's not like a market vendor that you have a whole table, you go to Macoya market and they bring it and they sell it. No. Or Namdefco market. No, that is not the solution to it. The solution is that each farmer grow a different product and they come to, but with somebody monitoring and scheduling where and how and which one to plant. Because a crop, take for instance tomatoes. Tomatoes are about an 8-month crop. but it won't
Okay.
start bearing until 3 months. You won't be able to start to pick until after 4 months. Good? So which
Okay.
means you have to have it staggered to different people. So it had to have somebody taking charge of that to ensure that we have a continuous supply in the community market. And it will be fair priced. It will be fair priced because you're not going to buy from the wholesalers to bring it. So when, because of a large flood, you see tomatoes rate $18. You're not going to have that there in the community market unless the person really going to the Namdefco wholesale market and buy it and bring it. You understand?
Yeah.
So which
So
means now you're going to have a constant and a structured price system that flooding and whatever else take place would not affect your prices. So you will have a constant supply with a regulated prices. Not regulated in the sense that it's telling them, but with the community thing, it will be regulated.
and then it's not like you just show up on a day and then you see prices are so high. I mean, communication these days is a lot easier than it was before. We have Facebook, we have WhatsApp. So if you understand, if you as a consumer, you understand what your neighbor is going through to produce something, and you know that this is what the price will be, you could gauge, I guess.
Yeah.
As opposed to you show up in the market on Sunday and
the prices go up.
yeah.
With the community market, you're not going through no middleman. You're not going through no wholesale supplier and no market vendor. You are getting a product from the farmer, or if the farmer cannot come because he has to see about the crop, somebody should be able to take over that and sell it back for the farmer.
Okay.
Right? So you understand now. You're not going to have that fluctuation of prices on a regular basis. It will be constant. It will be straight from the farmer. It will be fresh because it's not something that's been in a cold storage from 2 weeks for the pick and they have it there waiting to come out. It is going to be beneficial to the community to have something like that set out, more so in the areas that where we have working class people and people who understand struggle and difficulty for people. And I think it is something that I've seen it work in other countries, but here, because of the 1% want to control the importation of food and suffer you to different high cost of production by raising the price of the seed and the chemicals and so on because of the fluctuation of the US dollar and them kind of thing, it's going to continuously affect us. So what happening is that if we give growth to people, even some people who want to develop compost and organic manure, the person who doing the sheep and goat, the supply, it is a whole community effort.
I've been trying to get into composting for like 3 years now. But I've been busy with other things.
Well,
but it would be really great to actually like do that and be able to like contribute, as you said, to like a community marketplace. But that's just one hobby I really want to get into. Let me talk about the comments. We have some comments on Facebook already.
No, but before you go to comment, let me just tell you how simple you can start a compost heap. Get 4 pallets, pallets and tie the 4 corners together. And all grass cuttings from your lawn and your kitchen and anything like that. You're going down the road and you see somebody cut some soft bush, not big old hard branch. You just take it and put it inside of there. And it will start composting for itself. But you want to put it in an area where it has loose dirt so the groundworms would come out from in there and start to mulch it for you and so on. It is just that simple. It is just that simple. All the kitchen waste in terms of the leaves that you're cutting out from your thing, your little piece of bread you leave back, or your little piece of roti or a little bit of rice, all of that going into there. And you just start your composting right there.
Okay.
That's simple.
I will try to put it on the agenda for 2022. Okay, I will try to get back into this thing. I started and the day job got in the way. But anyways, back to these comments. Comrade Ozzy is with us as well.
Okay, good evening, comrade.
It's always here to hear Comrade Shiraz. Comrade Radhika says, if we establish community cooperatives, we can better plan the planting of crops amongst all the benefits. And Comrade Joanne says buying local, eating natural equals staying healthy and saving money. And I know you have a lot of facts and opinions about that too.
Yeah. One of the things is that good evening, Comrade Joanne. And I just think I saw David trying to get on, Comrade Abdullah. So one of the things I want to just go back into the supporting of the small business, right? When we had this campaign in 2005, right, of the eat local and so on, we were giving out formulas to make coconut bake, right? So when you have community areas like that, and where you can get people making coconut bake and homemade ice cream and so on, that could come at your community market. That will come there. I know some communities. I went up to this Bayagoari and Mayaro area there. There are people who went back into dirt oven making bread, right?
Wow.
It's a different taste. It's very healthy. I mean, they say when I going up on that side, I make sure I'm going to get my coconut bake because I can cook. Understand? I don't like cooking. But what I'm saying is that it's good when somebody can make something. I think. And let me tell you something. Out of the 2007 consultation, we had some organization set up named TABA. I don't know if Comrade Abdullah could remember that. Trinidad and Tobago Agribusiness Association. Yeah. Now, what happened is that we had equipment making potato chips, sweet potato chips, cassava chips. We had it on the market. We were making cassava flour, sweet potato flour. Those things are there, still there. But unfortunately, the People's Partnership didn't seem to want to get that going because it was a PNM initiative. And the PNM themselves, since 2015 they come into power, they didn't seem to want to encourage from a PNM initiative because it was a Patrick Manning initiative. Fueled by Phyton under the leadership of Comrade Abdullah and myself.
Because when people say politics is not really good for the people, I think that's the kind of politics they mean. Instead of the politics of having good policies that are good for the people in the country.
But so, one of the important things is that, I mean, they say when you have dog politics, is that dotish attitude. That is what they have. That dog politics. But when you have a political system that cares about community and works with the community to build a community, then you are talking about genuine politics. You know, if it is that, let us just say, in some one or two of the communities, MSJ decides to start like in the Faizabad area or the Princestown, Point Fortin area or some areas like that, where you already have some sort of agriculture activities. You go in there, you streamline it, you get it affecting the community and growing the community and so on. The community are eating more healthy. So when to tell Joanne, buy local, eat healthy. Buy local, eat healthy. Buy local, be sexy. Right? Buy local, be happy. Okay. Once you want to buy local, you have all of that happening to you, because what happening is that if you eat healthy food, because one of the problems I have with this whole COVID situation is that we are not promoting people eating healthy and having a better immune system to fight any kind of virus you have in the world. COVID, AIDS, all these kind of different virus, all the things. If your immune system is weak, it's going to attack it. But when you have a strong immune system by eating healthy, right, and so on, you will always have a stronger body to fight off what it is coming towards you, right?
That's true.
Take for instance eggs, the commercial eggs, the imported eggs that is plastic and all of that, right? You in those community farms, you have 2 or 3 small farmers who are unemployed or single mothers, and we could get them started with 5, 6 dozen or 100 layers, right? And they can now grow their layers, collect their eggs all week, probably sell some during the week that they could buy feed to continue feeding the fowls and so on, right? Go and cut some coconut in the bush and bring it and feed the fowls and pick some grass and give them so their egg would be more healthy. And on Saturday you bring what you didn't sell to the market. All of those things, common fowl, eggs, all of these things could be happening in our community, and it will create togetherness.
We talked about vegetable production. We talked about egg production. I guess with the price of bread going up, can we talk about the starches and how we could produce that locally?
Of course, it is simple because we have been making in our communities farine for a long time.
We've been making what?
Farine. You don't know what is farine? You know what is farine?
I think my family says farine.
Well, it's farine, but you know,
Same thing.
we corrected, yeah, farine or farine, whatever it is. Farine or farine is the same damn thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Cassava, you know. So what happened is a simple process, and I see somebody put up two simple formulas on the chat of how to make cassava flour.
Right.
Flour. You can make flour out of sweet potato. It just will have a sweeter taste. You can make it out of edibles or any one of those products. You can tubers. You could take the cut, but one of the best one that will last long, and we have been using cassava for the longest while to be making pone and them kind of thing, you know. So it's not something strange to us because we have our foreparents. My mother used to sit down and grate the cassava, busting up all my fingernails and so on long time because we didn't have processors as now. We used to have to sit down on a grater and grate it, you know. So you have all these equipment now so that you can process it, and you have dryer now. It's not like we in the long time days we had to put it in the sun and take something and move it around and all of that. You have dryers now, your dehydrators and so on. So there is available formulas of making flours in the home. But what I'm saying again, that could be some community project, because I was speaking to Comrade Radhika about it, that there are grants available for some community people a couple of them to go and get different grant funding to do things like that in communities, especially single moms or single fathers or a couple of people getting together in a community and say they want to organize a cooperative and get that done and bring in some more bigger equipment and just a home processor and so on. It could happen, people. This is not something we used to do it before, you know, in communities, but not in fancy ways like we're doing it now, because now you have Facebook, you have Twitter. I don't know how to use Twitter and all the different things it have. All I know about Facebook, WhatsApp, Messenger, phone, that is it, you know. So what I'm saying is have all of these ideas that we can use to develop communities. Of course, there are some communities that is very difficult to understand because of the PNM, UNC political sycophants, you understand? But again, there are people who don't care about those people, and they can still work in a community to change the outlook of how the community eats and so on. You know, we can create that. You understand?
And I mean, people are feeling under pressure now. So if we start with what are we eating, you know, it might connect to people a bit easier. So Comrade Abdullah has come on, and maybe he could come in now and bring up what you were talking about, what you mentioned about Taba and the work that they were doing. Welcome, Comrade Abdullah.
Thank you very much, Fabiola. Very good evening to everyone. Shiraz, good evening. Well, of course, I've been on from the start, right? Because I'm hosting, but I was going to just listen to Shiraz as he was, you know, identifying all of the issues and problems. So thank you very much, Fabiola, for taking us through that first part of the program. Shiraz, good evening. How are things?
Comrade, I'm great, you know. I can't complain. Things are a bit rough, but after everything, I'm still there.
Right, yes.
Aluta
Continua. Aluta Continua is a long time when we organize those campaigns to boycott KISS and to, force that whole issue of food on the national agenda. And of course, MSJ had, since 2 years ago, when we put out our roadmap for recovery, had said that agriculture must be the first priority, because we recognize that, you know, the whole issue of food sovereignty was going to be crucial at this point in time, given that, as you said, all those big countries are going to see about their own first, and whoever suffers as far as they're concerned. It's part of the global capitalist crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, with food being a weapon. You know, I remember from the 80s, we used to say food was a weapon. So I think we need to really focus at several levels. One is, as you were describing, community actions, cooperatives, and so on, to develop agricultural production on a small scale by more people. But we also have to push at the national level for national policies to support farmers, to support agriculture, to buy local. What's your view?
Well, I totally agree with the national. You know, that has been one of my campaigns for a number of years. And when you and I were on the platform in 2007, we did shake up the whole place based on our presentation in terms of where we have to go. But once you have the PNM and the UNC about their way of financiers, which is the big people there, they have to follow because they are basically puppets and the financiers are pulling their strings. And the importers of this country is a major amount of those 1%. So as long as they could suppress the agriculture sector, they will continue to do business, COVID or no COVID, global warming or no global warming. Because if it comes down to starvation, they could back a container in their community and feed themselves. And what do we do as a citizen? That we don't have basic food. But what we need to do is to go back to the days of saving seeds, right? Because that is what India is doing to recover, because that is one of the reasons why Chandranath Shiv and some of the people who are doing the biodiversity program, lives have been threatened by some of the big names like DuPont and Monsanto about the saving of their seeds that they can replant. Because what happened is that Europe at the same time had stopped importing anything that coming out of America that is not labeled properly or false labeling about the GMO content. And we have to understand the position we are as a people in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago. We don't have any seed bank. We don't have anything that will encourage further development of the people, of having seeds without depending on importation of seed, because at this point in time, seeds has gone up by 2,000, 3,000%. And hence the reason the cost of production of farmers and so on will continue to grow. You know, we will never get over understanding our importance of our sector being able to have clear policies of development and growth. You know,
yeah.
Unless we
I was just checking some of the Facebook.
Yeah.
Sorry, just checking some of the Facebook comments, you know, and a number of people are calling for action. I'm kind of have to swivel around to check the laptop behind me because Faviola was moderating initially. Yeah. So a number of people are saying that we need to take action, whether it is at a community level, whether it is taking mass action to force the government to implement the kinds of policies. You know, when we talk about cassava, flour, and all of that, as I was making the point on a Tuesday talk last week, I remember Professor George Sammy, when I was at UE as a student, 1973-74, invited me home by him to taste the bread that his wife had made from the flour, the composite flour that he had developed in the food technology lab on campus. That's 50 years ago. So what do we have to do at two levels to take action? One, at the community level, in terms of getting people to plant and so on. Whether it is a grow box or in tires or whatever, or in a cooperative. At one level, what actions do we have to take? And secondly, what actions do we have to take at a national level to really get the fundamental change in agriculture that is needed?
Okay, first of all,
and I know you're an action man, so
one of the first things that I am saying is that first of all, we have to stop going and pay exorbitant prices at those high-level supermarkets, what we call supermarkets. We have to start looking at buying things from farmers rather than buying it after it trained 3 hands and raise up by about 300%. We need to stop doing that as a people. If we really want to understand what the strength of our purchasing power is, like stop doing that and supporting your community farmers. Let us start doing that, because there are a number of people now, because within the last pandemic, within the last 2 years, you see a number of new vegetable sheds that have gone up by the roadside. It's not that people just want not to work, it's just that because we have, so there are activities taking place. But what we need to do also, we need to take a campaign, Comrade Abdullah, like what we did in 2007. We had a march at the empty pots. We had a march from Aranjuez to Port of Spain. It was sort of second fiddle to the then President Noor Hassan Ali dying. We need to take some activity. Now, yes, the pandemic is there, but we need to have activities ramping up to an action where we can tell the government, look, it's high time that we look at stopping all of this, because I am of the firm opinion that $8 billion that we spend on importation of food could cut by half in less than 6 months. Why it is that we are importing parsley into this country? Why it is that we are importing cucumbers in this country? Why it is that you could remember Premchand way back in the 90s, where we were producing tomatoes in Aranjuez, where all those buildings go up. And we cannot say that we don't have land, because you prove it to the world when you brought Vasanbara down to San Fernando, and we went all through the South Peninsula, showing where there's vacant land, thousands and thousands of acres, Santa Flora, Palo Seco, right in central here, going down in the south, there's land that we could plant. But what happening is that the land are being given now to the 1% friend and big business, right? The Aripo farms, we were fighting for that. And we are saying to the government, look, why give one man that farm, 1,115 acres of land? Why give one man that? Cut up that into 5-acre plots, in 2-acre plots, and give it to people. But you don't want to give people financial power in this country. You don't want them to learn to fish. You want to be giving them a fish a day. So we have to look at those issues, and we have to have mass campaigns against why giving away land like that to one person, when you have people who are unemployed and people who can grow food to suit this country. But why we insisted, even in this pandemic, to continue to import that amount of food, and our food will continue to rise. It is absurd to think that we care about satisfying the foreign farmers than our local farmers. It is not,
Shiraz,
and those foreign farmers are heavily subsidized. Those foreign farmers are heavily subsidized compared to us.
Yeah, I was going to come to that point about the foreign farmers being subsidized, because a lot of the imported food is coming in at a price below that which our local farmers can produce and survive on. And so I made the call again, which is something we have made the call on many times, that the government should subsidize the selling price of local farmers' produce. So local farmers could get a decent price for their produce, and consumers could get it at an affordable price.
Well, the thing about it, in terms of the subsidy or the food and so on, there's a WTO. You are quite aware of the WTO in terms of some of the rules that they have about developing countries cannot subsidize unless it costs 10% of the GDP of the agriculture budget, some nonsense like that. But I agree with you.
But we're in a pandemic. We're in a global crisis.
Yeah, but what happens is that,
yes.
Yeah. Well, what happened is that, comrade, if people could, there's a meager access to some incentives that is offered by the Ministry of Agriculture. But you have 85 to 90% of your farmers don't have land tenure. So even that subsidy, they cannot even, that little incentive, they can't, like purchasing a vehicle or a wheel tractor or a water pump or a whacker or a spray can. You cannot access that because you don't have a land tenure. And who in Trinidad don't know Shiraz Khan is not a farmer? And I don't have my land tenure to get my farmer's ID, right? So what they did was put the foot with the whole issue of land lease and telling people they're giving them lease, but what you offering them is Clarence Rambad is offering them a letter of offer for a lease that will take 10, 15 more years. Fooling the country. It is not a lease offer, it's a letter of offer that could take 10, 15 years again, because when you want to give me a lease, I will go by the president and collect my lease. right? So if you continue to have people wanting a lease, then you have a problem where the farmers and them don't have regularization and they cannot access anything, even though you put on it. Because if you could recall in last year before budget, in 2019-20, he said that farmers are tax-free, enjoying tax-free, but they must be registered. Because he know 90% of the farmers are not registered and will be able to access that. So that is one, and I and you and the whole JTAM or all the MSJ members can't fix that. That has to be a government thing of regularizing land for farmers, right? That has to be it, right? Because if you could recall in 2011 on the Easter Monday when they bulldozed the land, one of the things we was calling for is a land use policy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that has not come into place for years. Comrade, there is an issue where people, because they have nothing doing, people are jacking up the price on them for rented land. People are buying, somebody Venezuelan and the Guyanese are renting land from people who not planting. And sometimes they have to leave, they have to walk away from the land before they end up because they just can't make the money. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of abandoned land that we can make available for our people to produce more food. Because let me tell you something, comrade. One of the, I don't know if you can remember, in 2007, Dr. Gary Prentice had made a proposal to use more local input into feed making. I don't know if you can recall that, right? The then Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, was flabbergasted with those ideas that you and I and Dr. Prentice threw at him, right? Every year we keep putting it, every minister to put it before them. At this pandemic, we show them what could happen. I spoke about it on many platforms and for Labor Day, right? Is that if we are having problems with grains of wheat middling and soybean and so on, we have other protein base that Dr. Sami taught us in the early, which is using fish meal as a protein base for the animal food, right?
Yeah.
We have cassava. We can convert cassava and dasheen and eddos and all of these things into animal feed, just as how we want to convert it. So all the ways that you converting cassava into flour, all the skins and everything could be converted into a protein base for the animal feed. So we don't have to import all the soybean meal or all of these wheat middling. But what happened is that somebody is making millions of dollars. That's why NFM shareholders and them could raise the price of the product anytime that they want. And we are just dummies taking the blows. But there are avenues where the research was done that it could be done, comrade.
Yeah. So essentially, action has to be taken at two levels. Individuals have to support local farmers by buying from local farmers at real farmers markets and so on, right? Secondly, people need to grow some of their own food as much as they could manage, to learn how to grow their own food. And thirdly, we're talking about now actions that have to be taken at a national level, mass actions, to force the government to implement things that have been lying around in dustbins and on shelves for years.
And don't forget,
because all the plans are there.
Drawers. Don't forget in the drawers. In drawers.
Forget what?
Don't forget
drawers,
also
yes.
in drawers. Someone research.
Yeah.
Someone
yes.
research and lock
Your
up in drawers.
filing cabinet drawers and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I visited the Taba location some years ago when I was on Economic Development Advisory Board. Some of the people from Taba had reached out to me because it's just a little higher up from where I live on
Freeport.
On the Freeport Mission Road. Yeah. And I mean, it's a huge facility that they have there. I mean, it's a substantial warehouse building. And they had a lot of equipment that was there, bought at expense, that could process foods, making, as you said, chips out of sweet potato, all kinds of stuff like that,
and
right?
Cassava,
freeze drying cassava, and all of that.
Yeah.
Now, that was, let me see, I must have gone there in 2016, 2017, because I resigned, I think, in 2018. So so that whole set of equipment is probably rotted away, you know. So we come up with a plan. We invest money, put on equip a warehouse, buy equipment, start up things, and then it just collapses. So we really need to push at action at a national level.
Yeah, the thing, because what happening is that if it is that we have equipment lying down like that there and spoiling, why it is that it can benefit the citizen is our money that was paid for those equipment, because Starbucks was a well-run business. In fact, I was there about 4 years ago, and to my amazement, they were showing me that there are 24 4x4 containers mash of hot peppers coming out of Colombia. Why it is that we can't get our local farmers? We have one of the hottest pepper, voted in international competitions about the hottest pepper in this country. I don't eat pepper, but that don't mean to say it cannot work for the country of all. Why it is that all of these big fast food outlets are buying peppers from Colombia when we, our farmers, could produce that? We have the ability to do it. But why it is that we would rather pay an expensive price for the mashed hot peppers coming from Colombia when we have one of the hottest pepper in the Caribbean here, which is the scorpion, the Moruga
One of the hottest in the world.
One of the hottest in the world. Yeah, it was voted the hottest pepper in the world, and we have because here what happening, comrade, we have so much a prize product coming out of Trinidad, the best honey. You understand? We was voted 2 times the best honey in the world, and the 3rd time, the reason why we didn't win the competition is because some ministers see to stop the people from going to the competition in the world for honey. 2 times we enter, we won. The 3rd time they didn't send them, right? Yeah. And what happening with our ability in terms of the flower? Look at the flower and the fauna. Every time we go to the flower shows, we win the horticulture society. So we have the ability to do better. Why it is that we can't give more people the ability to do that, to assist the country in development and assist the other farmers in growing so that they can be financially comfortable and independent. So you give the farmer the documents for their land, you give them that so they can go to ADB and get some finances and do things that will benefit the citizen of the country. It is not hard fast from doing that. And one of the things, comrade, we had to also campaign in doing that. There was once a time in the Shagaramas, the Shagaramas Agriculture Development Project?
Yes.
Right. We remember we used to produce a lot of seeds from there. In the beginning, it was called the Corn and Soya Project, before they realized that the capitalists and them could make money out of soya. We in Trinidad and Tobago were producing soya and sharing seeds to the farmers, right at Chagaramas. And we were producing corn. We were producing corn and treating it chemically and giving farmers. That was the name of the project before CDA take it over. It was the Corn and Soya Research Project of the Ministry of Agriculture. And they were producing all the different seeds and supplying to the farmers. But then again, it had somebody was saying, hey, you all are close on that project. I can bring all the seeds and sell it. You understand?
Yeah. But the issue, Shiraz, and we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, right? By 8:30. But the issue really comes down to what we call the controllers of economic and political power in the country.
Yeah.
Right? We have to identify those controllers. Because the controllers of economic power do not want to see local farmers, small farmers and local agriculture to thrive, right? You made the point about the importance. And those local controllers finance the political parties who are the political controllers of power. So we have to not only challenge those controllers, we have to break that system of connection between the controllers of economic power and the controllers of political power. We have to break that in order for the real leap forward in agriculture. But I think that food and agriculture, nutrition, we was advocating again for this restart of the school feeding program. They should have never shut down the school feeding program when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
you know, so that every child should get, breakfast and lunch and so on, starting off with those who are in need and then expanding it to everybody and so on by way of a means test because the wealthy could afford to pay. So we need to get that going because that will mean that children will get a nutritious meal, farmers will get another market for their produce, and the businesses in the communities, that's right, people be employed and so on. Yeah. And our children will get a stronger taste for local food and our local cuisine and everything else.
Yeah, but, we have to change the culture of taste in the comrade.
Yes.
We have to change the culture of taste because what happened is that they were forced onto us. Because when they have the KFC and so on, and where they're located, you're driving, you must pass and smell it, and your children will rush behind you. The location is very strategic, so that you will always have that in your nose, so that you will want to buy it, and when you get the smell and them kind of thing. So we have to get ourselves out of that syndrome and the understanding of where we want to go. Because the more that we support these people and them, is like destroying ourselves and our communities and our society.
Yeah. Well, Shiraz, I know we could discuss all night long on this question, right? And there are a lot of comments on Facebook.
Agriculture is my baby,
Yeah.
And there's so much more to discuss.
I saw over the Christmas holidays there, one of your sheep or one of your goats produce a number of little ones. So I know you have a lot of little animals to take care of as well.
Comrade, one of the
a lot of people were posting up comments, talking about land tenure, problems of pre-year larceny, issues of, how do we make sure, that people who have land produce it. In other words, no idle land. When the colony workers were supposed to be given land, if you remember, as part of their severance package, right? The UNC government made a very horrendous decision, but they knew what they were doing to allow those people who were not using the land to sell it to others.
And we objected to that.
Yes. And so you have a few big companies now using agricultural land cheap. They bought it cheap. And they're now using that for commercial warehousing, houses. One company has a big gravel pit and operation down in Reform and so on agricultural land that should have been given to farmers. So the land use policy, all of these things come into play.
Comrade, I want to share something with you before I leave, right?
Yeah, sure.
The Pedialasny squad, right, just before Gary Griffith come into office, had 80 officers strong, right? 50 of those officers was pulled out of that squad to go and help Gary Griffith with his policing work. So it was depleted by 50, so there were only remaining 30 officers. So that is ineffective of getting anything done, right? One of the things that I am proposing in this present scenario is that we don't need to really train officers again to get the job done. We have soldiers, just as how the police is using the soldiers, because the soldiers are more equipped to go into the bush and find people, animals, and all of that. I am calling on the government today that they give the Pedialasny not 50 officers that left, but 100 soldiers, because they have equipment, they have vehicles, right? So that they can assist the Pedialasny squad in putting a damper on all these stealing that are taking place. Because if you're going to tell them you want 50 more officers, they would not give it. But you have soldiers there that you are using, the police service is using the army officers to get their job done. So why it is that they can't give that same army officers to the Pedialasny squad, who those officers was trained with going into the bushes and running on the tracks and making they said so they don't have use the same track, so which means they know how to battle with bushes. So what happening is that I am saying that one of the effective way to deal with Pedialasny is using the army to work with the Pedialasny squad, dedicating a 75 or 100 officers. And if that call could be made, that it continuously made, so that we can get help for those officers to curb because the pedialastin is escalating because people are working, comrade.
Yeah.
People are working, and people want to live and have to live. So you're going to have that aspect of the thing. But if you could take those same people that are doing the stealing and show them where they can do something in a community to benefit the community and make money, rather than always having to go and buy imported food, it will help us. But is it that they want the pedialastin to continue so that they could get their goods sell, imported goods, because nobody is stealing that, but the farmers continue to have problems to survive. So I want to share that and show that that idea so that they can use the army to assist the farmers in the community.
Yeah, excellent idea. And I know, Shiraz, you as you just come up with this new idea, you were the one who came up with the idea of farm pep as well. If you remember how many years ago, of converting some of the CPEP
2007,
teams into
finding the solution.
Yes, that's right, into working on agricultural projects and so on. But I think that in conclusion, I want to thank everybody who joined us on Facebook for not only joining but also contributing to the discussion. I'm sorry if I haven't been able to communicate all of your points to Shiraz. I referred a couple of them to him, but and I think he's covered a lot of the ground. But in summary, I think what everybody is saying and seeing now, but I don't think everybody is seeing, but the conscious people are seeing that it's time for action. We have to make agriculture, food security, proper nutrition the central focus at this point in time. And I think that is a consensus. Agriculture, food, farmers, food security, nutrition
security is critical. Nutrition, because you cannot eat. You cannot eat and become obese with food that, because you see that imported dog meat they're bringing in. How long we have been speaking about that, and it continues to happen because these are rejected meat that is not healthy for human consumption. It was stamped pet food, and we are coming in Trinidad and making it available to people to eat and getting people sick, comrade.
Yeah. I know you talked about chicken that has been frozen for 10 years and coming in, and then some people defrosting it and selling it as fresh chilled chicken and so on. So it's horrendous. And of course,
it's horrible to think that because of money, these people do that and destroying a whole city. And remember, they were taking all these chicken and feeding it to the school children. It was being fed for school feeding program, comrade.
Yeah.
They were taking it and deboning it and sending it to the school children.
Yeah. But one of the other things we have to do too is to get our local farmers to reduce the amount of chemicals, to move more and more towards organic farming, because people want to, in terms of eating healthy, a lot of the chemicals
apart from some, but there are bio-safe chemicals that are on the market right now. Use some plant-based material like neem products. There's a whole range of neem products that is bio-safe, that is safe for use on animals, that would not affect the human being like some of the dangerous chemicals like whatever. Because some of those chemicals that are being imported into this country and being sold are banned in Europe, comrade. Banned in Europe and America, and those chemicals come here and sold to people, and they are rejected chemicals being sold for pennies, because it seems like Trinidad and Tobago is a dump heap. We have no anti-dumping laws. When last have we revived our anti-dumping act to protect the citizen against dumping of food and chemicals and everything else into the country? We have to fight, and I think you should put that on your agenda about revisiting the anti-dumping act, so that we could curb some of these things happening to our country. And one of the things in saying that is that since 2014, our chemistry, food and drug lab has been shut down, right? Since 2014, and up to now has not been reopened, comrade. So who doing testing for us? So all of these things affect the agriculture sector, because what happening is that last year Clarence Rambert said that they now approved the design for the building. But you could rent a building to put offices in tutus, but you can't get a building to put the Chemistry, Food and Drugs, which is one of the watchdog organizations against the health of your country.
Yeah. Well, I when I was on the board of the Bureau of Standards, and that goes back to the 1990s, so that is a long time ago now. That is, 25, 30 years ago. We were pushing to have chemistry, food, and drugs being incorporated into the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, because the Bureau had labs and all kinds of things like that, and it would have been better resourced as a standalone body rather than as a division of the Ministry of Health, which is where it is now. But that never happened. So that's and for obvious reasons, as you described. And the other thing that you could use your trade rules for, you talk about WTO rules and so on, is that you can, on the basis of what is known as the sanitary and phytosanitary standards, you can actually prevent imported foods from coming into your country. The Europeans did that for many years to stop imported beef coming in from the US, right? Yeah. And there was a big trade war, but they were saying that the cattle in the US were being genetically modified, and the Europeans were saying, we don't know what the impact of that genetically modified animal is going to be on the long-term health and well-being of our people, and so they banned it. So there are ways and means of stopping the importation of these things, apart from the anti-dumping, using sanitary and phytosanitary barriers to trade, what are known as non-tariff barriers to trade.
Non-trade barriers, yeah.
But the thing about it is that
you only have one lab right now that doing testing in the country that everybody had to pay for, which is Kariri. You don't have your lab chemistry, food and drugs now, because I heard a man on an interview say that when he look at it, he approve it. He a bionic eye. You understand? You cannot do that. You have to have the necessary tests done and see that the animal, the whatever coming into the country, that is safe for human consumption. Comrade, there are some meat that is being corned beef that are being processed and sent into this country because we don't have enough animals to produce corned beef, and this is not healthy. You're seeing it happening. So what happened to our people? You understand? Yeah. Because there are studies done at the Johns Hopkins University of certain foods that affect the human brain and get them into violent natures. And if these chemicals continue to mount into people, it's going to have negative effect. And we have to look at safeguarding the generations that coming behind.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of ground there. We come back to the need for action to be taken at the individual consumer level to support farmers, households to grow some of their own food, for us to develop community cooperatives for food production and so on, and processing of the primary produce as well, because value added is important to process it. Also, and then, of course, national actions to force the policy decisions that are necessary to get agriculture and food security and nutrition as the #1 priority in the country at this time. So thanks a lot, Shiraz.
Thank you very much, Comrade, for having me. Thanks the listeners and the viewers, all who have given us the support. I didn't see all the comments, but I know it would have been positive and so on. And Comrade, I am here at the beck and call of the people, always at any time. God grant me strength and health. I'll always be there to support. Again, thanks for having me tonight, and God bless, and continue doing the good work you're doing.
Same to you, Shiraz. Stay strong. Our Luther continues. The struggle continues.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to Tuesday Talk. Next week, of course, we'll have another very important discussion. So until then, stay safe.